Welcome again to Tales from Africa, and it's been a great privilege for me to be able to share these stories with you about the wonderful things that God has done in my life. I've been involved in missions for over 30 years, and it was once said that one of the greatest blessings or greatest joys that a missionary has is when he is able to lead someone to Christ. But even a greater joy than that is actually when somebody that you've led to Christ has become mature enough in his own faith, your own child in Christ, being able to lead others to Him as well. And that's an exciting thing. The story that I'm going to tell you today has to do with one of the guys that I discipled in Avignon. As you remember from my Avignon story, Manuel was one of the original 6 guys that came to Christ, and I was able to disciple him. He was one of the guys that in that group that after only about being with me for about 9 months, suddenly, and I really mean suddenly, joined the military. A truck came through town looking for somebody to join the military, and he was getting ready to go to school. He just basically threw his books down and jumped into the truck and went off and joined the military. It was quite a shock for us as a group and for myself, but we really prayed and trusted that God would be with him and work with him. And over the years, over the next several years, we never really heard much from him and how he was doing. But one of the other guys who was a good friend of his had been in contact with him and said, you know, he's still following the Lord, and he is. And he had, I think it was about a year or 2 years later, they said that he had gotten married and had two babies, and he was trying to raise them in the practice of being as a godly father to them, to the girls, 2 girls. So that was very encouraging to us. But again, we had not seen him for many years. And in 2008, Helen and I we were out of the country, and now we were actually getting ready. Actually, it wasn't 2008. Excuse me. It was 2010. And we were getting ready to go back to Congo, but they allowed us to go make a visit into Equatorial Guinea before we went over to Congo. And so it was kind of in a sad sense, because we're saying farewell to him. And I was really praying to the Lord that He would actually allow me to be able to see all of the 6 original guys and to be able to talk to them. And we were able to do that, except for Manuel. And again, we hadn't seen him in many years, and Helen and I were there for 4 weeks, and in that 4 weeks we got to see a lot of the different guys the work that we were doing, got to speak with the disciples that I were working with, and it was a wonderful time, even though somewhat sad at the same time, but not able to see Manuel. And so Helen and I really began to pray that somehow God would arrange that we could see Manuel before we left. And but that didn't seem to be happening, so we were getting in our car to head back to Yaoundé, which then take a plane to take us back to Congo, and we had not seen him. And so we were on our way out of the country, somewhat enjoying what God had done, but also a little bit melancholy and a little bit sad we had not seen Manuel. And we were only maybe about 50 miles from the border. And in Avignon and in Equatorial Guinea, they have these roadblocks. About every 20 miles, they'll put a roadblock up, and you have to, show your passport, talk to them, hope that they don't hassle you too much. And so we had about 50 miles from the border. We had gone to this border. We talked to them, and so they raised the bar up. We spoke a little Fang with them, and that always encourages good feelings and stuff like that. So they raised the bar up and let us go through, and we hadn't gone more than a mile past, and all of a sudden this one of the soldiers was on a motorcycle zooming up behind us, and we thought, oh no, what has happened now? They're going to pull us over and say something was wrong. And I look out, and his soldiers come waving up, and it was Manuel. There he was, the person we'd been praying to see before we got to leave. Here he was on the motorcycle pulling us over. And we stopped and we hugged, and it was just a great reunion of just talking. And we sat down, and we just kind of, even though it was going to delay our trip, that didn't matter. We just sat on a bench, and we just said, what's going on? What's going on in your life? We heard that you're married, you have 2 girls, and it's so wonderful. And he goes, well, he says, it's really sad. My wife left me. And because what happened was that both of his girls had died, and his wife thought it was because of him, and so the wife ended up leaving him, and so it had broken his heart, and it was really a very difficult time. But so he says, so what's going on now? He says, well, I've married a new girl, a new woman, and so we're starting a new life together and a new marriage. And so I said, well, and I said, well, is this woman a Christian? And he goes, well, I've been trying to share Christ with her, but she has not been able to receive Christ, but I've shared the gospel with her, and I want her to become Christians. And so Helen and I were sitting there with them and happy to see him. I said, you know what? Can we go over to where you live and can we talk to her and share Christ with her? And he said, oh, that would be wonderful. And he was really excited about it. He says, yes, follow me. And so we followed him. We were in a truck and he was on his motorcycle. And we followed him over to the barracks in the military camp. And sure enough, we met his wife, Margarita, a very young, beautiful young woman. And so we sat down with her and we just were excited. And she said that, yeah, Manuel had talked about us and she was excited to meet us. And so sure enough, soon after that, his niece, who was also there, came in and introduced us to his niece, and a neighbor came in, and I began to just share the gospel with these three young women, and God blessed that time, and so on our way out, leaving the country that we had served, so joyously for 10 years. As we leave out, these three young women came to Christ, and I shared the gospel with them, and they all said yes, they would like to pray to receive Christ. And I said, I turned to my wife Helen and says, I really would like to give you the honor to these women to just pray with them, to share, lead them to Christ. And so sure enough, she talked to them and prayed, and all three of these women prayed to receive Christ. What a wonderful time! It was just like the icing on the cake as we had a great time visiting old friends and ministry, and being able to have this time with Manuel, to meet Margarita, and to actually have the privilege of leading this young woman to Christ with a niece and a neighbor. It was just a wonderful experience for us. It's moments like this that burns so deeply in our hearts and gives us such a love for Africa and a desire to be able to return there and to be a part of God's ministry there. And so it's with honor and privilege and great joy that I just share this story with you this afternoon, and to thank you for the prayers that you've given to us, because a lot of this happens because people like you are praying for us time out and time again, or how that expression goes. And we thank you for that. And we just ask God blessing upon you this day. Thank you.